Olena Kuchar. I came from Kiev. I have a 7-year-old son. We spent 3 days in a bomb shelter in Kiev. I quickly decided to evacuate when my colleague agreed to take us to the railway station. German volunteers met us in Hungary. Then my friend picked us up. She has been living in Berlin for a long time, and so we arrived in Berlin at 3 a.m.
My name is Galina Korniyenko. We are from Hostomel. I'm a human rights activist. I advocate for the rights of the drug-addicted women in Ukraine.
My name is Natalia. I am a dentist.
I think we've been very lucky. When it all started on February 24th, we were in different places. I was conducting a training for women from all over Ukraine. My daughter was at her friend's, where she was looking after the cat, and Natalia was at home. It took us a lot of time, but we finally met in Hostomel. We decided that it would be safer out of town, but it was a bad decision because of the closeness to the military airport. On February 25th, some of the women we hosted couldn't stay there anymore because of the explosions. So we spent one night there. As law-abiding citizens, we were waiting for the curfew to end. But we left a half an hour earlier and it saved us. The tanks were coming. It took us 15 minutes to quickly put our stuff into a car. There were explosions all the time, and we left. If we had waited a bit longer, we'd go straight at the tanks, because just after we left, the tanks came at the traffic circle near us, and the fighting began, so there are a lot of ifs. A lot of things could have happened, but everyone is safe and unharmed. We came here to Berlin because we have friends here. Welcome. Please come in. My name is Anya. I'm from Chuhuiv district of Kharkiv region. These are my daughters Sasha and Toma and my mom Svetlana. And this is our new friend Kira. We took her on February 22nd. It took us a long time to make a decision, taking into account that I'm pregnant and we have 2 children. From the 10th day of the war, my husband brought up the question of looking for a safer place, because we could appreciate all the charms of the friendly invasion from the first day from 5 a.m. On the very first day we could see everything, the grats, the helicopters. The reason was that my father has a disability, 4th stage of kidney failure. He needs dialysis. That's a procedure to clean the blood. Why Germany? I was sure that we'd come and find a place for a patient who needs dialysis.
My name is Yasim. I've been living in Berlin for 5.5 years now, and originally I'm from Turkey. In 2015 we had 1,000 refugees arriving a day, and with the Ukrainian refugee crisis it's 10,000 and over 10,000 a day. But that's due to because Ukraine is so far, so close, and Syria is so far away, and people literally had to cross the Mediterranean Sea to arrive here. This is official. It's from the Senate itself. And these are just the official numbers. I've been working since 5 weeks with the refugees, and they're unofficial numbers as well. So the UN Agency for Refugees expect in total 10 million refugees. And as of right now, 4.1 have fled so far. 2.4 million people have fled into Poland. And in Berlin, we have officially registered 35,000 refugees, and 31,240 of those have received social benefits. Soon they'll have their work permits and can basically build a life for themselves.
We arrived at the bus station in Berlin. We went to the volunteers. First of all, they provided medical assistance to my father. There was an examination, an interview. They asked what he needed and how soon. So we arrived on Friday, and on Saturday he went for dialysis. We started asking around where we could stay, where to go, and they said that there was a refugee center as a last resort, but it's better if we find better conditions. So we were sitting and waiting there, and suddenly they told us that they had found an accommodation for us. You'll have a hotel room for 2 nights. A hotel room? Not a tent? Not a folding bed? A hotel room? 2 nights with a shower, with a breakfast.
You know, honestly, I think everyone is trying their best. But I also think trying is not enough. We should do. We cannot sit and try something in a crisis like this. We should act fast. And after 6 weeks, yes, there are certain questions I still have to the governments that I do not get answers to, or we don't get answers to. I mean, it's just as simple as when people arrive. I'm sure, when you're fleeing a war and you've been on the road for 20, 30, 40 hours, you want to take a shower. That's a basic human need.
First, there were 2 people talking to us, then one more girl. They continued texting us, asking how are we, whether we need any help. They ask if everything is fine with us here. So we have been in touch. And one of the volunteers went with the parents for dialysis because we needed someone to translate for us. We don't speak German. She is German. She is a parishioner of this church. She was one of those who met us on the first day. So she is worried for us and ensures that we have good living conditions. She may come and say, I think you need something. We tell her, it's all right, we are fine. The main thing is that there is a mattress and there are no explosions. I think you need something better.
The woman who hosted us, well, we still try to find out who helped us find each other. The hostess' name is Anna, and she loves saying, "Who is Olha?" I say, "I don't know who she is." There is a chain of contacts. Some friends and colleagues helped us find each other. I got her phone number and learned that Anna has a son of the same age as my son, and this could work. She got COVID, and we couldn't meet because of that. We had been calling each other in WhatsApp. She showed us the apartment and told that there was a football field where we could kick the ball and feel comfortable. Because before we lived in Charlottenburg district, and there everyone was telling me to behave quieter. Anna is a painter and a sculptor. She also teaches art to children, as far as I understood, because we communicate in English and we don't always get each other perfectly, although we try to. As to the period of stay, Anna told us the following: you can stay here as long as the war goes on. I translated it to my son Yakiv, and he asked, "It means until the victory?" And she corrected herself, "Yes, until the victory." Later, after we moved in, we were having tea, and I asked her, "How did you take such a huge risk?" She said, "I don't know, I decided to do what feels right," because she met us for just 45 minutes and thought that we had a lot in common. I still think about the huge risks she was taking. We run into each other very often in this apartment. We have a common kitchen and dining room, and children are in constant contact. And if I was less European in my actions or values, if my child was more stressed, I was very worried about it. I was afraid of how the children would find common language. But in fact, the children are still careful in interactions with each other. Anna's son let my son stay in his room, but he still decides what are the limits, when you need to knock and when you don't. But our toys are in his room, and I think that's very generous of a German child to let another kid into his room.
First 4 days I was at the Polish-Ukrainian border just to see what we will expect in Germany. So I had a little prognosis, and when I saw what I saw in Poland, I came back and I said, okay, there will be probably a humanitarian crisis here. So we have to hurry. We have to build our systems fast. And I arrived at SOP and I saw that there were thousands of people arriving at night, especially at night, because they would leave Poland in the morning with those buses and they would arrive at night, and it was cold. It was very cold. And we didn't have much in place, such as warm places. And we just worked 30 hours, 35 hours without sleeping, and just giving out food and warm clothing and finding housing, especially. Because what we did is, since there was no government or any organization, we asked the city of Berlin to open their doors. And then we had systems. We had a database of volunteers who said they can sleep in my room, they can have my whole apartment for 2 weeks. So when people would arrive, we would just spread them out in those apartments so they could stay somewhere warm, as it was super cold.
Our neighbors come to us almost every day. Anna told them that we were from Ukraine. They bring us dates, some fruits. Some of them stand in the corridor wearing a mask because still thinks about COVID. Some of them come inside to have dinner with us, but they all really want to help. They offer to play soccer with my son sometime. They suggest going out for a picnic. They offer their bikes. They ask if we need money. So all of them try to think of some ways to help us. What's very interesting, they all understand our need to hide from the world for some time. So they are friendly and willing to keep in touch. And at the same time, they understand that we cannot be as socially active as we would be if we came here as tourists.
As for border crossing, they had to let us pass, check the passports of our pets, check if they had chips. One of our cats didn't have a passport or other documents, and we thought they wouldn't let us pass, that we'd be quarantined and so on. But at the Polish border,
They didn't even look at the pets.
they pretended there were no pets in the car.
And so the cars could move faster.
Yes. When we came here, we had some food for the dogs and the cats that we took from home. But the volunteers brought us a lot of food for the pets. They gave us a kitty litter, different tasty snacks, and so on. The name of the organization is Tafel. You can write them and they will give you a certificate to go to a veterinarian.
Our pets got the chips, and they have new passports. And now we have to get insurance. It's obligatory here. The pets must have insurance.
The dogs, not the cats. We have to insure the dog.
They do everything. That's really great. I came to the veterinarian. She started telling me what I needed to do. I said, okay, let's do it. How much is it? She said, you have a stamp here, which means that everything is paid. When we moved in the apartment in the Moabit district, I googled some volunteer centers because we had been offered a lot, but we needed some things like slippers or some trousers we can wear at home. So we went at the address. We waited around 2 hours in the line. The line was very comfortable. There were sofas, chairs. They brought us tea and cocoa. And then we could get inside of a small building. There were clothes on hangers. We could take some hats, towels, socks, and so on. I saw a bright purple coat, and I went straight to it because I really needed to get something colorful. I evacuated wearing a dark green jacket, and I wanted something brighter. Then, when we went to Charlottensburg Place with my son, the guy at the check desk gave us free tickets. Ukrainian refugees can get there for free. And he asked where I got this coat. He said it was so cool, and I was really flattered to hear that.
It all started with food packages. We prepared hundreds of food packages with the donations that we received, we went shopping, like to a regular shop, and we packed everything that we thought a woman and a child would need. And we packed it up, and then we stood there at Zopp and Hauptbahnhof, Südkreuz, Ostbahnhof. And when people came, you know, they received hugs and welcome, here's a package for you. But then we realized quickly that there are more and more people coming in. So then we had stands, we had information points, and then we had housing team, we had translator team, we had driver team. So when we would place them in an apartment, we also had our drivers picking them up, their luggage, and driving them there. And also checking the apartment if it's okay for people to live there, if it's legit, if it's safe. So we basically did everything that a government should do. But since there was no one, we just took it upon our power and just started this big organization.
Ukrainians who come to Germany are considered as people fleeing the war, or even military refugees, but it's very important that they are not refugees. Because refugees are the people who have to live in a camp for the first 6 months. They don't have a right to travel across Europe, they're prohibited to come back to Ukraine. If they do so, they will be held criminally responsible and lose all their rights and status in Europe. But if they are military refugees, Germany takes them and gives social benefits, residence permits, people can travel across Europe or Ukraine, and they will get protection from the war. People have a right to travel. They just have to inform Socialamt that they want to leave for a few days or a week. But I heard that in Berlin, social workers say that if you leave for a period up to 3 weeks, you don't have to inform about it. But in other federal lands, they ask to inform about the period of leave, because they can put on hold the social benefits for this week or a few weeks. But they will be renewed as soon as the person gets back. Because Germany doesn't have to pay for people's traveling. And if you want to go to Ukraine, it means that you have money for this trip, and they don't have to cover for it. It's true that they don't want to give you a refugee status, because it's for the whole life, or at least 5-6 years. If the point 24 is applied, a person can return to native country when the war ends. But they won't send you back right away. If we get lucky and the war ends in a month, the residence permits will be valid for the next year or 2. The point 24 states that such person has the right to start working right away. A refugee cannot work for the next 6 months, and even after that, there will be problems with employment. Germans know that Ukrainians are very hard-working people, so the point 24 is applied and Ukrainians can start working right away. And in future, they might even help to get work visas under a simplified procedure. I can say that the speed at which they process the application from Ukrainians is incredible. Usually it takes 3, 4, 5 or even 6 months to get a residence permit. Ukrainians who have to wait for 1-2 months are not used to it and think that it's long. But in fact, Berlin and other federal lands are very quick.
It's not Ukrainian against Middle Eastern people, no. I think what we need to focus on more is the governments and the West, how they think about a crisis now. And don't get me wrong, because I worked in 2015 and I'm working now with the Ukrainian refugees. For me, the most important thing is the human being, and nothing else matters at this point. But when we talk on a political level, it matters. The West is not used to their own people being in a crisis, so it's a big shock, kind of. If you talk about funny things in a crisis, they're actually sad, but you find some funny things in it as well. If your question is, like, in moments where we laughed, there was this, I think she was 83, this old lady, or I still have to laugh because she was so adorable. So she's like 83 or something, and she arrived by bus at Zopp, and she got hit by a bomb. So, and that's what I'm saying, it's not funny, it's actually very, very sad. But this lady, we asked her how we could reach her, because she was driven to the hospital, and we wanted to make sure that she gets housing and whatever she needs after. And then we asked her how we could reach her, and then she showed her Instagram. She was like, you can reach me on Instagram. And that was very funny. what marked me as a human, just being there, was how, especially because I'm a woman too, and I know what it means to be a woman in this world, that I saw so many women with their children, and they were just very strong. I didn't see many women crying or giving up. Maybe I feel very wrong for saying that, because I don't know how they really feel. You know, I'm just seeing it. Maybe they are crying, but what I saw is that they were strong. They were there. They were caring. And there were so many people also coming to us and asking, can we help you? We want to be a part of this, because you're doing all this work, but you're doing it for us, so we want to be a part of that. And I thought that was incredible, that they're still, they're makers, you know? And you can see that in Ukraine, the stories in Ukraine, how people are fighting for their country and for their lives, basically. The unity, I think it's the unity that really it was amazing to see.
Друзі, у нашому минулому відео про Чехію всі наші герої зійшлись на думці, що для успішної інтеграції в чеське суспільство, найкращих умов для працевлаштування та для комфортного перебування в країні необхідно вивчити чеську мову. І незважаючи на те, що українська та чеська дуже схожі, це все ж таки складне і непросте завдання, яке вимагає часу, сил та участі кваліфікованих викладачів. Вже після виходу відео ми познайомились з командою мовної школи Go Study, яка понад 20 років допомагає студентам вивчити мову та успішно вступати до вишів Чехії. Наразі команда Go Study реалізує великий благодійний проєкт за підтримки Міністерства освіти Чеської Республіки та має можливість безкоштовно навчити кілька тисяч дітей з України віком від 14 до 18 включно основам чеської. Все літо Go Study проводитиме безкоштовні курси для дітей, яким необхідно підготуватися до нового навчального року. Курси проходитимуть очно в Празі або в Брно і містять 80 уроків чеської, 5 днів на тиждень по 4 академічні години на день. Посилання на цю програму ми залишимо в описі. Ну, а у випадку, якщо ви не підходите за віком або хотіли б пройти більш інтенсивний курс для подальшого навчання в університетах або роботи в Чехії, у Go Study є програми різної спрямованості та вартості. Є також курси у форматі онлайн, які можна проходити з будь-якої точки світу. Посилання на інтеграційні курси можна знайти в описі.
Well, as a person who thinks rather like a manager, I like this bureaucracy. You know that in any case, if you need to get from point A to point B and you find an algorithm how it's done, you will get there, because it's just like that. They are Germans. You cannot do it any other way. But everything is slow from our point of view. They say that it's very quickly. People wait for these kind of things for years here, and you just arrived here and got everything done right away. Another reason why we're in Germany, not in Poland or Czech Republic, because we are officially married. We got married in Utah. We seized the opportunities during quarantine, and we got married via Zoom in Utah. So we are officially a married couple, and no one gets repressed here. No one asks any questions. Nothing special.
I'm really surprised when Ukrainians text me, "Oh, we've been waiting for an answer for 2 weeks," or "We got 300 euros and not 350," or "We need to wait 2 weeks to start the studies." Actually, no one has ever been treated so well.
To be honest, it really helped that we have friends here, and we chose a country and a city where we have some support.
We don't speak any German. We speak English. We speak fluently. So it's easier for us because Berlin is very multicultural city and a lot of people can understand us. But actually our friends helped us with almost everything. And then there was a lot of information in different groups on Telegram, on Facebook.
We already have a residence permit for 2 years. This phase is over. And again, it was quick because we have friends here who said, "Don't go there, I mean the general queue. Go to the social amt in your district. You'll get everything done quicker there." We really went to the social amt in this district, it's not far, and if other people were waiting the whole night there, it took us around 40 minutes and one more hour in another place.
There are a lot of volunteers, so they do everything really quickly.
And actually, the locals, our friends who live here, say that what's happening with Ukrainian refugees is something incredible for Germany because Germans have never worked so fast.
If a person lived in Germany and had another residence permit, a work or a student visa, it expires and the person cannot renew it because there is no other job or the studying is over. The point 24 also applies to such person for 2 years in Berlin and for 1 or 2 years in other federal lands. Those who use the visa-free regime to come here can stay until September. But there are other cases. I know a woman who used the visa-free regime to stay here before, and she doesn't have a right to benefit from the point 24, because those who had been here for 3 months before the war cannot benefit from the point 24. But her daughter just came to Germany, so she can apply for a protection under point 24 together with her daughter, and she will get it. So if a person who has been living here has relatives coming to Germany, they can apply together.
Finally, the same volunteers who had met us found us an accommodation. We came on Friday, and on Saturday afternoon, they told someone was waiting for us. We'll go there tomorrow at noon. People met us when we came here. It's an evangelical church. It's a big and ancient building. It's more than 100 years old. You're going to Epiphany. What's that? What's waiting for us? It turns out that good people were waiting for us here, and they're deeply worried about what happens in Ukraine. They want people to live with at least some comfort and feel well. There were 6 of us living here. Then they found another apartment for my parents.
We had visited Berlin several times. We have a lot of friends here. We contact them regularly, and they were looking for accommodation for us or some other things.
We are an LGBT couple, right? We contacted our friends. The community was involved a lot in the beginning, and they helped us. And another couple of girls who have been living here with their children for a few years already found us a first place to stay. Actually, it's a very interesting story. They belong to a second generation of refugees of Vietnam War. And when they learned about us, their mothers said that they would host us. We've been using all the possible resources we can. But Berlin...
Everyone says it takes a lot of time to find an apartment to live here. And taking into account that we have 4 pets, it's almost impossible. But we haven't given up hope. When I tell that I found a social housing, people often ask how I did it. I don't have an answer to this question. It was a communication with one specific volunteer. She once commented to my post on Facebook. That woman, I don't know her, wrote, "Should you need any help in Berlin, you can contact me." And 10 minutes after my mom made a decision, I wrote this woman. And in 30 more minutes, she called me and said, "You're not going to believe it, but we found an apartment for your mom." So there is a firm, a company that owns some apartments. And at some point, the stars aligned, and a person from this company contacted the woman I talked to.
They let us live in a church in our own tower. I think everything was well arranged. We live in luxurious conditions. We have to go up and down all the time, and we call those who are too lazy to go outside Rapunzel. Today's Rapunzel will stay in the tower. That's not a prestigious title. They prefer going out. So basically, we live here. That door leads to our bedroom. You can approach the pipe organ and go down. You can hear the sound of bells now, and we always hear the services. There are also concerts and rehearsals here, so we have additional music therapy. That's the window of our kitchen that you could see from inside. So we live behind it. And these crosses are the windows at the second floor. House hunting is like writing a grand proposal. You have to write a motivation letter to explain why we are such a good family, telling that we are good tenants and we can be considered for this apartment. We have to provide proof of our capacity to pay, that we can pay for this apartment and we won't get into debts. Then there is a special document here which confirms that we don't have any credit indebtedness and that our credit report is clean. So just to apply, just to be considered by the owner of the apartment, you need to collect a lot of documents. Plus, you have to write a letter to the owner following a certain format. There is information that Ukrainians can find an apartment, take the contract, take it to Socialemt, the social service, and Socialemt will cover it. But there is a but. The landlords don't really want to deal with Ukrainians, because it might be that they rent an apartment now, and in 3-4 months Ukrainians leave. Everyone understands that in 3-4 months, if everything is fine in Ukraine, we can just return home. And what should they do with us then? So now they sign these agreements for 1, 2, or 3 years. That's why Socialemt is not really willing to cover the pay. It should become easier because Berlin made us an unexpected present. They started giving the residence permits for 2 years. It allows you to receive another document confirming that you have a right for housing with social discount. It's not a social housing, it's a housing with social discount at low tariff. And if everything goes well, Natasha will get a job and our family will have basic income and will be entitled to this document confirming that we have a right to a housing with social discount. That's the next stage, but we need to stay somewhere with the pets for 2-3 months.
Everyone goes to Berlin because it's a capital, but I don't recommend to stay in Berlin to those who don't have relatives here, or a job or a place to live, because you'll be accommodated in the refugee camps. So if you don't have anything out of these 3 things, I advise to go to some small town. If you have a place to live in Berlin, it's better to register your residence. It's done at the town hall. It can be any town hall in Berlin, not only in your district. You can also take a termin to go to any town hall, and all you need is to have a rental contract, or your friends or relatives can sign a declaration saying that you have a right to live with them for the next 6 months. But it doesn't bind you to anything. You still have a right to apply for a social housing, but we all know that there's actually no social housing in Berlin. There is a queue for years with Syrians waiting. Also, there is a big plus in the status of a person fleeing the war. After registration, even before you get a residence permit, you can receive social allowances. Now it's 357 euros for an adult and around 250 for a child. Starting from June, the payments will be bigger. Around 440 euros for an adult and a bit bigger sum for a child. These allowances will be given to anyone. It's important that they pay for the period starting on the day you came to a social service. not the day you arrived in the country. And you'll receive medical insurance along with social allowances. Until June, it's limited, only for emergency cases. And starting from June, people will get full social and medical insurance for any cases, any matters, even a regular examination.
So the girls and me received 760 euros per month. That's the total amount. My mom first got 50, then 400 more in 2 weeks, something like that. And the parents received 300 something, less than 400 for one person. No, that's for both of them. We received 320 each as a married couple.
Around 340
Katya,
each.
our daughter, is over 25 years old, so she's an adult, and she got around 660 euros, something like that, a bit tiresome.
Are you sure?
360, sorry. I'm counting our money.
Is this money enough for a normal living in Berlin? I doubt it, but our regular feature, Borscht Ingredients Basket, will give you an idea of local prices.
Okay, so now we're going to buy the ingredients for borscht. For a true Ukrainian borscht. Hello to Marina Zakharova. Berlin doesn't have any big food markets as we have in Ukraine, but there is an alternative. There are street vendors. Here you can buy a few carrots or one onion, because in supermarkets you'll usually find big packages. We don't need so many, so we'll buy everything here. Let's go. One onion, €99 per kilo. Beetroot, then garlic, €8.99 per kilo. Carrots, €1.79 per kilo. Cabbage, 2 will be enough. So the total cost was €6.56. We also need to go to the supermarket to get tomato paste. 49 cents. We also need to buy sour cream. Let's take this one. Cream fresh. It's very similar to our Ukrainian sour cream. It costs 75 cents. It will be a vegetarian borscht. But I'll show the prices for meat. €3.91 for 400 grams. On a bone, right? Yes. The wings cost €2 for almost 500 grams. There are also chicken thighs, €4 for almost 600 grams. €6.80 plus €1.30 for tomato pasta and sour cream. That makes around €9 without meat. Without meat, because we will cook this doggy today. I'm joking. Laura will cook the borscht, and I will do everything she says, slicing, helping, and Laura will be our chef today. She knows how to cook a really tasty borscht. Actually, there is a huge community of Ukrainians in Berlin now, and last week, for example, there was a borscht party. The guys from Arbikina, it's a restaurant in Kyiv that organized it, together with the guys from the bar in Odessa, Fakultat. Yeah, so they organized a borscht party and they donated all the money for children. They raised almost 1,000 euros. It was so great, so heartwarming. There were a lot of Ukrainians, all in one restaurant. You could hear Ukrainian language, everyone eats borscht and chat. I had an impression that I was on Reiterska Street in Kyiv. It was really great, and there will be more borscht parties almost every week. So, if you are in Berlin, check on the news and come to eat borscht. When you're away from home, you miss everything Ukrainian. You listen to Ukrainian music all the time. And of course, you try to cook Ukrainian dishes. What can be more Ukrainian than borscht? To be honest, I don't eat borscht in Kiev as often as in Berlin. It will be the 7th or the 8th time I eat borscht for the last 2 months that I'm here. Laura, how many times have you cooked borscht here? This is probably the 10th time.
I cooked a lot of it because I changed the apartment 10 times already. And I have a tradition to cook borscht in every home. So yes, maybe 10 times. That's why we decided to cook a vegetarian borscht this time, because it's a light meal and it's quicker to cook.
Give it back, give it back. Smells like home. It's ready. Come to the table.
I hope that Berlin will smell like Ukrainian borscht now, even if it's ours.
They should join us. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit, glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes.
I'd like to remind you that we have to support each other. Support Ukrainian products. So please subscribe, press like, and leave a comment. It's easy to do and it will make us happy.
I can handle conversation in a supermarket already because I learned some simple words and phrases. It's very difficult at school because when we came there on the first day, I had to find the classroom. I thought that someone would meet us in front of the school, but no one did. And we were wandering in the corridors, and no one understood me when I tried to speak English. In fact, it's still a huge problem. I can't imagine how we'll manage the studies after the summer break. It's also difficult to write letters, but at least there's a Google Translator. I paste the text in Ukrainian and send it.
I can't imagine how the mothers with the children handle everything here, especially those who don't speak German. They need to find some activities for their children, and it really helps that Ukrainian community has organized a lot of them. Some free excursions, some molding classes and drawing lessons. That's really cool. And Germans really help a lot. One of the zoos made free entrance, so you can find some activities for a child and take your mind off a bit. That's great. We are very grateful to Germany, to Poland.
Really, really grateful.
My name is Natalia Sereda. I'm a member of Plast National Scout Organization in Germany. I work with the youngest group in this organization. It's called Ptashata. It implies activities for children and their parents. It's been a year since I'm an officer for the Ptashata Plast group. I coordinate this age group all over Germany. Here in Berlin, we meet for different gatherings, not only indoors but also outdoors, and there are 5 other instructors apart from me. We had calm, well-ordered life, and it suddenly became a huge challenge because the number of people willing to join our activities doubled and then tripled, and now we are thinking about the best way to organize it. We can see a unique unity now. There are a lot of people who conduct unique master classes. We had planned an Easter egg painting workshop for this weekend. That's what we always do before Easter. But Marichka, the craftswoman, suggested to do some molding, and suddenly we found a whole bag of clay, so we've organized a molding masterclass. That's how it works now.
We learned about Plast in the Halabuda group on Facebook. I always try to take control of everything I can. And when we arrived, I thought, okay, I have to create some basic structure for my son, some school lessons, and some extracurricular activities, and a community of Ukrainian-speaking children that Yakiv could communicate with. I started making a list of groups and clubs. I realized that Plus organizes the biggest number of activities, and it's the closest. We came for the first class, and I was crying almost all the time because children started singing the song Червона Калина. Yakiv didn't know the words, but he was trying to sing along. For me, it was very emotional communication. I really need it, and I think that it's good for the child, too. The children of all those who register their place of residence in Berlin or anywhere in Germany have a right to go to school and kindergarten. Children from 6 to 14 years old are obliged to go to school in Germany. In Berlin, you have to enroll your child at school the next day after you registered your place of residence. In other federal lands, you can look for a school for up to 3 months. Since the influx of Ukrainians is very high and there are very few welcoming classes that accept Ukrainians, it's not very tightly controlled now. But if you plan to stay in Germany with child, you have to find a school. Students also can enroll at universities. Before, one of the requirements was a completed education at Studienkolleg. It's a preparatory college. Or you need to confirm that you studied at Ukrainian university for 2 years. Our secondary education is not an equivalent of German one. This is our second try to go to the school here. The first time was not very successful because Yakiv got ill, so we had a 2-week break. We spent a lot of time talking about how it feels to go to school where you don't understand anything. We were talking about why he has to do it. Yakiv was saying, I don't want to be away from home. I don't want to attend a foreign school where I don't even understand when they take me to have lunch. And we agreed that he would be like Harry Potter, who has to go through this journey to help our military, because it's our front. It was the owner of the apartment who told us about the school. She wrote 3 letters to the schools in the neighborhood. 2 of them were full, and this had open spots specifically for Ukrainian children. I was told that they accepted 12 girls and boys from Ukraine, but they will study in different German-speaking first, second, and third classes. I came to meet the principal and the deputy principal. The principal could speak English a bit, it was helpful. They asked a few questions and said that we didn't need to buy anything. We just had to come there, and the German families would help to get the textbooks, notebooks, and school bags and so on. It's free. At this school, they use Montessori method. That was comforting because I wasn't sure if it was possible to integrate into the German system. It's a bit easier for little children here. When he came out, he was very angry. He told me about 3 things he didn't like. He didn't want to go out without his jacket. He didn't know he had to do it. He said that at some point in the extended day group, which is called Hoft here, he lay down on the sofa and pretended he was asleep, but in fact he was crying. I asked what happened next. He said the teacher sat next to me, patted me on the head, and then I started playing. I think it was a psychosomatic response. It's quite evident when he feels stressed. So when he got ill, it could just be a choice of his body to stop doing things that caused such stress. Yesterday he told me, "Mom, I'm afraid to go to school," and I told him that I feel scared too. So we decided to be scared together, because I couldn't hide my own worries from him, even when it comes to finding the right entrance, the right classroom, and so on. It's not easy at all because everyone speaks German at school and no one speaks English. And I don't speak German, so when I came today, I couldn't even understand the questions they asked me. They were asking if I'd pick him up from school or he'd go on his own. Only a mom of another Ukrainian boy who was behind my back offered her help. We could understand each other thanks to her.
I almost found my class, and before that, I was spending time outdoors and played at the playground.
Have you found common language with local children?
Yes,
How do you communicate?
fine.
What lessons did you have today?
There were no lessons.
No?
We were just playing, and that's all. We played with Legos, with cars, and we were taking to a park which is far away. There was a playground there too. I don't know other children, but they are the same. It was 2 days ago. I came from school and I was angry because I didn't understand anything there. They took me outside and I was wearing a sweater. I didn't understand why they did it. And they wanted to take me to some classes I didn't know anything about. That's why I was a bit angry when I came back. The situation is difficult at schools right now because they are looking for teachers. And unfortunately, when they can't find a Ukrainian-speaking teacher, they choose a Russian-speaking one. From psychological point of view, it's good for children because at least they will understand something. But if we speak about a long-term perspective, it's not okay for many people. Actually, I talked to many moms who also evacuated their children, and it so happened that all of them are the same age of my son, and all of them have already successfully enrolled their children at school in their neighborhoods. I suppose it's my hypothesis that people who came to Berlin are obligated to enroll their kids to school sooner or later. It's an obligation. Probably that's why the schools make concessions and look for possibilities to accept children.
As to my pregnancy, on February 28th, I had a doctor's appointment planned. I had to attend medical screening. I was supposed to do some tests to learn the sex of the baby. It was supposed to be on February 28th in Ukraine. Because of the war, I missed the screening and finally went to see a doctor here on March 28th. The guys from this church arranged everything. They found a doctor. I got screened here exactly 1 month later. We learned that it's a girl. I got tested here one more time. A lot of things are free. For example, last week, we went to an eye specialist with my daughter. People just called and said that we were refugees from Ukraine, asked if we could come. They issued a termin, and it was free for us. I'll have to give birth here because the maternity hospital in Kharkiv where I gave birth to my daughters is destroyed. And it's not the only maternity hospital that was destroyed. Even if tomorrow we have peace, they won't manage to rebuild everything so quickly. It was a second difficult decision when we understood. First, I had this thought that we'd come back in May. It won't take long. Then I had to accept that we won't come back. I'll have to give birth here, and we'll have to stay here with the baby for some time because we just have to be somewhere.
The first days were very difficult because you can't stop scrolling the news in your phone. I'm not a fan of social networks, and I started going crazy because of the news. As a dentist, I'm used to work with my hands, and it was difficult for me without any manual labor. That's why I started working the land here, cleaning up and organizing everything. I found an activity to keep myself busy, and I was looking for a job. I can't work as a dentist because there is a very complicated system for validation of qualifications here. First, you have to learn German and have at least a B2 level, and then there is a certification of diploma. I don't remember how this process is called. They wanted to give me a job as a doctor, but they didn't know how. I was writing and calling people. I was going to interviews. They tried to figure out what position I could get in order to work with them. and I can be a dentist's assistant. And I guess on Tuesday, after the Easter, I will sign an employment contract. Ukrainians are well treated because they are given a right to work. Before, people had to translate the diplomas, take some exams to get a job in Germany, and now every Ukrainian who gets a residence permit has a right to start working, regardless of whether a person wants to be recruited or start a business. In order to start working, you need to get a tax identification number. It's delivered by mail after you registered a place of residence. In Berlin, people wait for 2 weeks to get a tax identification number. I know people in other federal lands who got it in 2 days. Once you receive it, you can officially start working. Actually, people help a lot. Everyone who was waiting for me at work really tried to help. So they treat us warmly and show understanding, even if I don't know German. And when I was talking to doctors at work, they treated me as a doctor, not as an assistant. Not a paramedic, not a nurse, but as an equal. And I was really impressed because it's a show of respect among doctors, and it's really nice because there is a term, a second-class citizen or something, and I haven't seen such attitude. Yes, I understand that I will work as an assistant, and I will not take part in a medical treatment itself, but they ask for my opinion and discuss different things with me, and I really like this attitude. I was really impressed. I will be able to work in Ukraine if I come back. That's for sure. I know that they really need doctors in Germany. And people in the community say that they might simplify the procedure of validation of qualification.
For Ukrainians, whether evacuate or not, to be honest, it was a problem for me for a long time, because I thought it was not right to leave. When I had some sleep and I understood that I sleep peacefully and I don't flinch because of explosions, I realized that for us, it was a right decision. Everyone has their own life, their own path. So, the question of evacuation, you can't judge anyone or insist. It's a right of every person. If a person feels that he or she can stay and needs to stay, my husband said, I won't go. They need me here and it's true. And he helps. He goes to combat areas, he brings some stuff to battalions or just brings food from supermarkets. So whatever the request is from our army, he tries to help. I respect his choice and it's very important. I want to go home every day. The girls want to go home. We are treated very well here. We are very grateful to people who host us, but we still want to go home.
The worst thing for me is to act without understanding what will come next. Because I'm a person who makes plans for the next 6 months or a year. It's impossible to do it now. I don't understand if I should learn the language or insist that my son learns it. I'm just waiting for any information that it's safe to come back. My friends often ask me, what can be such a criterion? For me, it means no air raid sirens, because after what we've been through, I think even these sounds will make it impossible to stay there and feel calm. First days after we came here, Yakov had a strong reaction to loud noises, especially the sound of car doors closing. He started to lean, squat, and look at me with a question in his eyes whether is it safe. Sometimes a helicopter flies above the neighborhood at nights, and it's also hard for me. Yakov's already asleep, and I'm thinking whether it all started here. My mind tells me that it's impossible, and we are far away, and it can't be true. But when something flies above you, or firecrackers go off, it happens too. Maybe it was someone's birthday, but I realized that I won't stand hearing any firecrackers in Kiev. My personal statistics show that only one mom out of 30 says that she wants to stay here, because it took her a lot of efforts to start her life here, and she wants to stay longer than a month to get the result. But the absolute majority waits for the opportunity to come back. We follow the news. With one hand we hold our kids, and we scroll the news with another.
I miss my toys. I want to see my cat. And Mom said that when we come back, she will buy me a dog. It's not good to fight. My biggest wish is for the war to end, because then I will come back home.